Hi guys, I'm Shayda and today I have my very first furniture refinishing tutorial to share with you. This is something I've been wanting to cover for quite some time, so I'm super happy about it. Now if you're looking for more art and illustration, don't worry, that video will be on Friday, but today's sort of a bonus video. So what we're going to do today for our first refinishing project is an upcycling or a painting project. So nothing to do with stains or stripping wood, but we are going to completely make over a piece of furniture. And I'll be using Premier paints from Canadian Tire to do that. Now they're really good for refinishing a piece because they're very washable and they have great coverage. So they go on easy and then they're very durable for the lifespan of that piece of furniture. But we'll get to all that later. First, let me say that this past weekend in Prince Edward Island, it was our 70-mile yard sale. So we were out at the crack of dawn, Chris and I and my parents, and we scoured those yard sales looking for treasures, looking for the perfect piece, and I found a piece that was only $5 that I wanted to show as a makeover piece. It was kind of a cool thing, but I'll show you that later. Anyways, let's get to it. I want to teach you guys about furniture refinishing because I think the first time that you paint or upcycle a piece, it's quite empowering. It's a big thing to have some ugly table and then completely transform it with a coat of paint and then have that big table as part of your life, and you changed it. You made it beautiful. So let's get started. Saturday morning here in Prince Edward Island, and it's the day of the 70-mile yard sale, and the key to good yard sailing is really just getting up super early, so that's what we're doing. When it came to the yard sailing, we crushed it. We were up early, we moved fast, and we found so many cool treasures. And it was a gorgeous fall day, and there was lots of harvest produce, and we saw all kinds of fun collectibles. And there was a ton of people out. It was a huge success. The roads were busy. There was tons and tons of yard sales. And finally, we found this little treasure, this sort of Victorian, beachy lawn chair. I'm not a stickler for real antiques. It's probably a piece of junk, but we got it for a steal and we loaded it up. And we continued yard sailing till 2 in the afternoon. It was a great day. Hey guys, it's Monday now. So today I am going to show you guys how I would refinish a piece like this. And what I really want to get across is that it's not a big deal. It can take a little more than 24 hours. And with the Premier paints from Canadian Tire, you can paint it any color and turn an old piece of junk into your perfect piece of furniture. So anytime you're refinishing or repurposing or repainting a piece of furniture, the most important and the first step is prepping the surface that you're going to paint. And today that means sanding this chair. Now I've got a little palm sander here. It's really easy to use. It has a Velcro bit here and the sandpaper just sticks right onto that. So I can easily change the grits. And I want to start with maybe a 120 grit, and I'll go up to a 220. And as you go up, the paper gets finer. So I'm not trying to take off all the paint with a really low grit or hard sandpaper. I'm just trying to sand it and get rid of any flecks or chips of paint that might be already about to come off, and get rid of any dirt, and just make sure I've got a nice smooth surface that's ready to sort of accept the paint. So what I'm doing here is sanding a hole once over with the 120 grit sandpaper, and then I'll stop, change my paper, go up to the 220 grit, a finer paper, and go over the entire chair again. And there is some major discrepancies in the color here. The chair is part white, part brown, but you'll see when I put that Premier paint on, it really does cover all of that. So I don't need to worry, I just need to prep the surface. And I'm going to finish prepping by going over it with a little sanding block and getting in all the nooks and crannies. Then I'm going to wash all of that dust away and let it dry in the sun. And then finally, I'll go over it with a tack cloth. And a tack cloth is just a little sticky or tacky cloth that's going to pick up what remains of any dust from the sanding process. And now finally it's time to paint. So I grabbed a few tester size cans of the Premier paint from Canadian Tire, and they are the perfect size for doing a piece of furniture, and they're only about, gosh, $9. And I love choosing shades that are just almost white but not quite, so I picked this beautiful icy blue. It's called Quiet Water. And here you're going to see me take my little tester can and a nice brush from Premier, and I'm just doing very light, thin coats. That's really key. You don't need to put a lot of paint on there, but as you can see, even thin coats, I'm getting great coverage, and you can see how even this light blue shade really coats and covers the back of the chair where there is this discrepancy in color from white to dark brown. So a thin coat, keep it thin. What a thick coat, the problem you'll have is that you can easily get drips. So a thin coat will guard against drips. You're still going to get good coverage. And remember, it's better to do more thin coats than one gooky thick coat. So I'm just putting on nice light thin coat, doing simple brush strokes, and not worrying about getting in every nook and cranny, just trying to coat the chair with a nice thin coat of paint. Did you get that? It's a thin coat. Anytime you're working on a three-dimensional object like a table or a chair that has like a lot of rungs and bits, you just want to be sure that you're watching for drips. So when you're doing a rung, make sure you check all sides of it to make sure you don't have a large drip down the back. And then at a certain point, when the item is dry to the touch, you can flip it over and paint from another angle, and do that as many times as you need to get in and make sure you've coated the entire piece. And then I like to finish by going in with a tiny brush and just getting in any little detail areas where I couldn't really reach effectively with the larger brush. And then once you've done that, it's time to just let your piece sit and dry, probably overnight, at least 12 hours. So it's now Tuesday, day 2 of our little project, and today it's quite hot and very windy, so unfortunately it's not quite as nice for filming or working outside. But the first thing that we're going to do now that our chair has had a chance to dry for about 20 hours, is sand it again. And I've got my palm sander fitted with a piece of 220, so a very fine sandpaper, and I'm just going to buff the entire chair. This is a really important step because no matter how careful you are with your paint, you're always going to end up with one little drip or an area that's thicker or thinner in paint, and so this just helps get your chair ready for the next coat of paint. After the sanding, I wiped the chair with a tack cloth to get rid of dust, and now I'm just putting on a nice light second coat of paint. And there's no substitute for painting this way where you're doing light coats with the sanding in between. This method will result in a chair that is a different color instead of a chair that looks like it has a coat of paint on it. Thick coat of paint is going to be gloopy and drippy, so this is the way to do it. Now you might notice with your second coat that it looks a little lighter, and paint always dries just a hair of a shade darker than it goes on. So don't worry if it looks streaky or anything. Just do a nice light coat, and then you're going to let that chair sit and dry until it's dry to the touch, and then just flip it over and continue with your second coat, watching for drips when you do the legs and the rungs or any odd bits on your furniture. And we'll just let that dry now for at least about 6 hours. The nice thing is if you're working inside like me, Premier paints are low VOCs, so this really didn't have any odor, any noxious odor that I could detect, so I had no issue with working indoors. So believe it or not, we're already at the final step, which is sealing our paint job. And for that, we're going to use my sort of secret magic ingredient, the Minwax Paste Finishing Wax. And to use this, you're just going to open up the can, and it's this natural colored wax. And I just use a disposable spoon, and I scoop out a couple dollops onto a piece of linen or cheesecloth. And then you're just going to roll up the cloth and make a little ball with the wax. Now we're going to coat our paint job in a nice layer of this wax, and the wax is going to protect the paint from getting scratched when the chair inevitably gets used. So you can see here I'm rubbing it on in a circular motion and the wax is seeping through the linen and you can feel it. You can feel that there's a waxy layer on the chair now. And I'm just going to continue and do the whole chair. If and when you run out of wax, just open up the linen or cheesecloth and put another dollop in there and continue forward. It'll probably take a couple spoonfuls. And make sure you just cover the entire surface of the entire piece of furniture. It's okay to put lots on there, and like I said, you'll be able to feel that there's a nice waxy coating, but you shouldn't really see any wax. And then you're going to let that sit for 10 minutes, and then you're going to take a nice clean lint-free rag like an old bed sheet or t-shirt, and you're just going to rub the entire surface of the chair down and just sort of get rid of any excess wax, and you'll find at this point that there's a nice hardened, somewhat hardened layer of wax on top of your paint job, and that is really going to protect this piece of furniture. Well guys, that's it. That's the whole process. These Premier latex paints are so much more accessible than chalk paint, and they come in a whole range of colors, and they come in those wonderful little sample cans. And when you pair them with that paste wax, they're durable, and you have a chance to create a unique piece of furniture that will last you a lifetime. And I'll end today's video with a few photos of pieces that I've worked on and painted. I, of course, did a lot of projects for the shop when it opened back in June. Over the years, I've done many dressers and cabinets. I love painting the inside of dresser drawers, doing them a fun shade. This cabinet here was all yellow pine when we first purchased it, and so I painted it this light aqua, and then when we moved I decided to repaint it in white with a gray interior, and that's the beauty of painting things yourself. You can change them at any time. Of course, children's pieces, you can get really whimsical, like I did here with this narwhal rocker. And my black and white children's desk set really comes to life because of this little whale on the seat. Now I also strip stained and lacquered the top of the desk, and if you'd like more info on refinishing wood in that sort of way, let me know in the comments below and we'll do a tutorial. Thank you so much for watching my first furniture refinishing tutorial. I highly recommend the Premier paints in the sample cans from Canadian Tire. I hope you'll all give furniture refinishing a try, and please hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching.